what I want to do is to talk you through a little bit of what may be some backroom stuff for some of you, but give you some context to some of the things that are happening on the delivery of the video feeds that we've been talking about during the last couple of days. So a little bit of background on me first. I spent 22 years working for BT, a very, very large telco in the UK, and I was responsible for their broadcast technology research and development division, and that involved doing lots of things. And over the 22 years I worked there, saw an evolution of technology and capability in video transport that really changed amazingly. And then about 3.5 years ago, someone suggested I took the crazy step of going into vendor land from service provider land, and now I get all the grief that all the service providers were giving, that I was giving them a few years ago, is given to us. So it's different sides of the fence, but very, very exciting to be there. So for the last 3 years, I've been working for Nevion, based at Adastral Park, which is near Ipswich. It's a large science park with about 4,500 people on, include lots of other telecommunications companies as well. So that's me, and that's where I sit. So what is Nevion? Now, someone yesterday afternoon said, is it a brand of bottled water? And I guess, and the answer is no. Nevion's actually the coming together of 3 companies that have been instrumental in the broadcast contribution space for the last 20 years, really. They've come together over the last 5 years in a couple of different mergers to make a company that's really responsible for delivering a significant amount of equipment for the contribution of video, be that everything from 4K down to very low rate video and other media services as well. And ADI is one of our exciting new customers from the last couple of years, and it's been really exciting being part of that journey with ADI, especially during last year as this service was really built up. And what we specifically provide to the ADI story is all of the high bit rate, high definition video connectivity from all of the stadia into ADI's hub here and then out to the customers. And also, more importantly, or as importantly, a very, very flexible control system, which I'm just going to talk to you very briefly about, which really is an enabler to an efficient use of people's time to actually create the connectivity and the very flexible and dynamic connectivity that's needed to carry this video content around. So why does it matter to you? And this is almost a rhetorical question, really. We understand that that real-time media content from live sports events is incredibly precious, and it has to be handled properly to be able delivered with integrity. Delivery with integrity is absolutely vital, and that's something that we put a lot of focus on within our company. And just briefly over the next handful of minutes, and I can already smell some lunch cooking, so I won't make it last too long, we're going to look at some of the key elements, some of the key things that we do to make that really critical and important media flows deliver all the time where you want them. So some of the challenges we're facing. High definition video is now here, and it's almost the de facto that everyone's using. And we heard 1 or 2 figures that 1 or 2 people were talking about yesterday in terms of how much that is. Each uncompressed video feed is 1.5 gigabits per second. That's quite a lot of data. How many of you have got more than 50 megs to your house at the moment in a VDSL type stuff? A handful? Yeah, I mean the numbers are rising. I remember a 9K6 dial-up when I was when I was growing up, and I was really excited by that. But the capacity is going up, and looking to the future, I mean we're very excited with the capability we've got with the high definition transport, which is serving the ADI's needs. But looking to the future, we've been thinking about 4K. And 4K means not only more resolution, spatial resolution, but one of the things everyone's talking about, which again was alluded to yesterday, is a higher temporal resolution that's needed. So you need to at least double the frame rate to maybe 120 frames per second. And then we talked about a higher dynamic range. So we need more bits for everything. And literally every video feed, if you extrapolate some of those, would consume in its uncompressed format 40 gigabits per second. If we then take that alongside some of the stuff we're looking at with remote production, where maybe you want to pull back 12, 18 video cameras at the same time, the maths just goes out the window. So there are things like compression and lower rate previews and everything like that, lower bit rate previews. But there's a lot of technology, but there's a huge volume of data to carry around. And large distances, right across the UK, but also, for the international connectivity, literally anywhere in the world. And we mentioned the speed of light. We have had some interesting challenges, people saying they want us to deliver to Singapore in 100 milliseconds. And we say that's really, really very difficult. And I don't think anyone can do that. Although Adobe did say yesterday that they were working on it. So I'm looking forward to that. So how do we protect that precious revenue flow from that content? What I'm just going to do is touch on some of the things on this bullet point, just to give you an idea of some of the things that we're looking at to actually make this work. Again, for some of you, it's not directly relevant to your end user experience, but there's a lot of stuff that has to happen behind the scenes to actually give you what you need. So I guess some of you can witness to some of the requirements on these bullet points here. These are kind of typical customer requirements we have in the broadcast space. So high availability, people talk about 5 nines or greater, the always on, dropping out for 30 seconds is not an acceptable option in the middle of a match. Low latency, possibly not quite so critical for some of the distribution applications, but some of the interactive applications, it's really important that the low latency channels exist, and we've certainly provided that in the solution that ADI are using. Full integrity, the ability to manage the service effectively, and everyone always wants it for a lower cost. And I think some of the models that we've been hearing about from ADI in terms of shared infrastructure actually are key enablers to making that happen, which is really good. So one of my bosses about 15 years ago stood up at a conference and said, "IP, therefore I am." You have to let that sink in for a minute for those of you that haven't heard it before. And one or two other people have got even worse ones like IP everywhere and things like that. But what it was saying is that there's a big convergence to IP technology for transport of media in general. Obviously the internet is IP based, but in terms of broadcast connectivity, that's been a little bit of a holy grail, which until recent times really hasn't embraced that technology. But I'm pleased to say, having been a very anti it a few years ago, that this technology has really come of its own now. And it's the way we use that technology that really is a key enabler for the flexibility that people like ADI are having. And this is a very, very simplified sort of diagram of the connectivity, the end-to-end delivery to you, the customer, that's making use of this content. But the network's there in the middle, and the key things that's really important is that media edge adapts the precious content in a really appropriate way from the sports venues, carries it with integrity over the network, and that there is some reliance on the network behavior, but also the things we can do around that to actually make that work, and then delivering it at the back end. And not only that, but that stuff has to be done under a dynamic control system, so we can actually decide to reroute and be flexible as we go through different matches at different times of the day and pulling them through. So the connectivity is important, and there's two things that are important for us as a company. Standardization is very important to make sure that people don't feel locked into a single vendor solution. And also, as the ubiquity of IP comes out, more and more people want to interconnect in the cloud, and standardization, therefore, even in this professional video environment that we're talking about in the contribution world, is actually very important. The other thing, talking about those massive bit rates that we talked about earlier, is compression. As you heard yesterday in an overview, the ADI solution uses what I call a gentle compression ratio of about 10:1. So the stuff is only compressed very lightly, and that allows us to have pristine quality delivery of the video for onward use. And that's very, very important. But as we look to the future for some of these higher frame rates and higher resolutions, spatial resolutions, then that becomes an even more important and integral part of the system. But they always say you only have one chance to make a first compression. So actually, compression is something that has to be done very, very carefully, because you can't undo what you've done. So the kind of lightweight approach that's being taken in ADI works really, really well. So controlling the connectivity. It's really important that every part of the network can be controlled. What you can see on the screen at the moment is part of our video iPath application suite. And what that allows the people that are running the system here to do, as well as other customers globally, is to have a very, what I call, abstracted and easy to use end. So people don't need to understand what IP is, because believe me, it can be in some of its depth quite complex. But if we can actually abstract the usability by actually giving a very easy to use user interface to actually do that control piece, people don't need to worry about typing in IP addresses. They have a very, very simple map and pull down list of connectivities, and that's all very easily defined and also monitored, and we'll just talk about that shortly. This is just another view of that screen on the screen at the moment, and as you'll have seen already from the way ADI are operating this, it's very important that they can completely book up and dynamically assign circuits to be reconnected all the time, and there's many thousands of bookings in the system that are actually there to actually provision all of that connectivity exactly when it's needed. So one of the other things that we look to do, again, to abstract the users, to make the delivery of this so much easier, is a whole toolkit of applications. So a bit like what's on my iPhone, a whole load of different things. I won't go into any details, but the concept is, if we can actually make every element of the way the service is controlled, monitored, very easy and app-based, then that actually makes the end-to-end provision and the end-user experience so much better if it can be operated efficiently and smoothly. So, protecting connectivity. So again, we talked about the 99.999% availability, the always-on requirement that we have for this pristine content. And we've developed quite a few different protection technologies that work within the network and on the edge of the network, everything from what we call error correction to dual path seamless routing, a whole load of different technologies that allow us to actually help ensure that content is always delivered, even when you have connectivity breaks, network breaks, and there are always going to be physical failures of things, whether that's JCBs in the network or whether it's pieces of equipment that fail, and it's really important that the architecture of networks is able to actually work around those things, and that's something that we think is very, very important. Just going to grab some water. So scalability is obviously vital, and this guy is innovating and growing this system just amazingly over the last few months, and looking to the future, we hear some exciting things about how much more it's going to grow. And even with the kind of level of connectivity that exists at the moment, if we think about the evolution of remote production, where we actually want to pull back all the individual audios, all the individual videos back centrally as well, then that's another order of magnitude of connectivity that's needed. So one of the exciting things about the kind of technology platforms we're using is that actually the scalability is really, really good, and there is no real limitations either in the actual equipment nor in the actual control system. Okay, heading towards the end here on this kind of brief overview. Monitoring is also really important. So it's all very well to say we need to deliver this content for you guys all the time, but we need to know that it's happening. We need to know that it's happening. We need to know when things might be going wrong. We need to know when things have gone wrong, to be able to actually make sure that we can proactively restore service, proactively switch in other circuits, know that resources aren't available when they should be, etc. So monitoring every aspect, right from the delivery at the ground, the handoff at the ground, right through the network, is vitally important, and that's something that's very important in our overarching control system as well, to give visibility of that, again, in an easy to way use, so it's easy for the operators here to actually be able to know what's happening and control things. Okay, we've reached the end of the brief look through the Nevion contribution to this and in other places. So hopefully you've seen that what happens behind the scenes as the enabler to this content delivery is a vital part of that chain in terms of getting all of that precious content from wherever it is delivered to wherever it needs to be. We've been very excited to be part of that journey for the last 12 months, and we look forward to working as technology evolves to the future to help make this story really exciting moving forward. So thank you very much for your time.